All right, so we're going to start. This is actually our final main stage keynote after lunch. Okay, don't run off, because after lunch on this stage we're going to be talking about mobile marketing with the guy who is the authority on that subject, Tim Hayden. You definitely are not going to want to miss that. If you're a startup interested in getting funding, probably everything you think you know about startup funding is completely wrong, and my buddy Kamal Ravikant, who's a VC in Silicon Valley, will tell you so, and he'll tell you what you should be doing actually and how you can leverage some of these crowdfunding channels like Kickstarter to actually get some traction before you go to VCs.
And don't forget the cash box.
The cash box is going to be happening at lunch. Remember, today, guys, breakout rooms are on the first floor. If you go up to the fourth floor, the cash box will be up on the fourth floor, but if you want to go to a breakout room after lunch, those are on the first floor. First floor today. Sorry, through some logistics with the hotel, we had to move those down today. And then we are also in the other breakout room. Crap, help me out, who's got a schedule? Oh yes, I'm sorry. Where are my nonprofits? This is a big one. Where are my nonprofits or people who consult to nonprofits? You definitely want to be in that particular session. If you're wondering, does this 5-step funnel work for nonprofits? Yes, it does. We'll prove it to you when you get in there. But it is a little bit different. There are some tweaks to languaging and stuff like that. All right. The obscenely tall gentleman to my left, I much preferred Kevin Harrington and Kevin O'Leary. They were, no joke, my height. It was amazing. I felt normal. But this guy right here, Lance Johnson of ConversionGeeks.com, is maybe one of the best copywriters I've ever met in my entire life. We've given him enormous sums of money to produce some of the winners that we have in our company. So if you're looking for a fantastic copywriter or someone to do y'all do copy critiques and stuff like that as well?
Yeah, that's right.
Somebody to help with doing the copy around your sales funnels, this guy knows his stuff. And since copy is one of the most important aspects of conversion, we've talked about so many tactical aspects of conversion, but we haven't really touched on copy. We would be completely remiss and would be doing you guys a grave disservice if we did not do that. So he's going to come up and talk about his process. He's going to show real examples from real campaigns that actually worked. So it's not just theory. This is real live, in the trenches stuff. So if you would please give a big round of applause, Mr. Lance Johnson. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, man.
Tear it up.
All right. Well, okay. I don't know if my clicker's going to work because, all right, let's see here. Wow, I am kind of tall. All right. Okay, perfect. So I got to correct one thing real quick. I actually, I don't write copy for other people anymore. It was a lot of fun, but I found out that if you're okay at writing copy, and really it's just about writing a lot of it on a regular basis, then other people will work with you, and you actually make more money doing it for yourself than you do doing it for other people. So if you guys want, I'm going to be looking for some copywriters at the end. So just a little idea, if you're a copywriter and you're pretty good, please talk to me back at the booth. But with that said, it's not a retirement. I'm not retiring. I'm almost a quarter of a century, as my brothers like to remind me. But I figured, I've still got some stuff left in me. So what I'm going to do is just give you the process that I use and really take you inside one of the campaigns that's working well for us right now. Because I think that people get this idea that copywriting is some magic formula, like they have words that sell and there's just, you need power currency to talk to your audience, and there's some, I guess, formula or a template or, bullet list that you have to follow. And really it's making a lot of mistakes quickly. So the most successful copywriters, I was having a short conversation with a guy named Mike Palmer. Has anybody heard of Stansberry Research? I think there's some of the guys here. And I would argue they're the best copywriters in the world. I think they do really great research. But, one of the gentlemen, I think Pimsleur is probably one of the second best sales letters with their Pimsleur approach offer. But, Mike wrote for 10 years before writing his huge breakout promo. I just try to churn through offers quickly. And I'm going to just take you guys behind the scenes of that process. Another thing of what I've really enjoyed doing is not divorcing copy and conversion tactics. So some people think like copywriters are the divas over here that come on stage, they do something big, and then walk off. But if I'm getting royalty checks, I want the whole funnel to work better. So what we're going to do is walk through a couple of the tests that we've run. Ed Scow, are you in here? Ed? Anywhere? All right, well, if you've heard, oh, there you are, Ed. Thanks for stopping by. So we were working with a gentleman by the name of Mike Geary and Ed Scow. So all this data is compliments of our friend Ed. We got to do a lot of fun optimization with him. Now, what I'm going to ask you all to do is, if you have a piece of paper, then just take your best guess and see if you can see which variable would win or not win. And then at the end, I'll tell you how I do on guessing whether or not the variable will win or not win. You can see if you can beat my rate. Because, people paid me a significant amount of money to try to beat controls. Maybe you're better at it than I am. So, first test, an image-only header or a benefit header. Now, one thing I'd like to point out is that a lot of people who talk about split tests lie. What they'll do is they'll show you something, and it's not a real A-B test, right? It's like an A, B, C, D, E all rolled into one test. And every time I've done this, whenever I've changed more than one variable, almost, I've probably missed something big. There was one thing that we got a false positive on that I think we would have caught a lot earlier, but we changed 4 or 5 things. And with this test, you might notice that, all right, where's that? Aha. These images are different than these images. So you could argue that the test results would be affected by that. I usually try to think, is it going to be less than a 5% change? And if so, then we run it. If not, then we'll go back and try to rework it. So just write down, if you think the challenger, I would just give yourself a tick mark. Challenger would win or image-only header would win. The idea was the benefit header it's the first thing people see. So what will happen is they'll latch on to the benefits we've already tested in the copy, and we know are a big deal for our audience, and they'll feel like this is something they want and continue scrolling down, because the whole point of the header is to get them to read the rest of the copy. So, all right, everybody got their pick? So next, the winner was the benefit header, 14.34% increase. And at the end, we'll talk about a little bit of the statistics that go into it, just because generally you need to see how much data they put through the test. If you have 10 sales, you can't really call anything. So next one, we had a control, we had no timer, and then we dropped a timer underneath it. So pretty simple, it's maybe 3 lines of code. So think about it. Do you think the challenger would win or the control with no timer would win? Once you got it. We got an 18 to 21% increase depending on, there's usually a conversion range, like with your confidence interval. And that was about what we hit, 18 to 21%. So go on the timer. Now, I know they said there's no magic words, but sometimes you run a test and you find out that your audience really likes maybe 3 or 4 words. And this test was just a 4-word test. So you can probably read that headline. Now, the difference we made was right here with the normalize your blood pressure. So we switched it up and added that benefit. We noticed it was all throughout the copy. And it wasn't in the headline. We broke it out. Oh, and by the way, with these weird colors, do we have any graphic designers in the room? Anybody who does graphic stuff? All right, I see you guys back there. So, as I started off in graphic design and web design, and I hate stuff like this because it's just so ugly. But I started working with Ed, and Ed says, Lance, we tested this, it works. And I was like, oh no, don't tell me it worked. So if you have a chance, I don't have the exact numbers, I think it was around 20%. If you have a chance and you have multiple benefits in your headline, try splitting the colors. So you could probably swipe those exact colors. Unless you're in the weight loss space, and then you can't use any of this stuff. So you got it, controller challenger. It was a 19% increase for the challenger. So 4 words gave us a 20% bump. Okay, now I didn't put it on here because I don't like looking bad, but we also did a test right after that with another 4 words, and I think it dropped conversions by 8%. So, there's a lot of luck involved in getting your test right. But if you can find that benefit, it's going to tell you more about your customer than just that these words work. It's going to say, like, maybe we should test a lead around this. Like, this could be a bigger deal than we initially thought. Because at the beginning, you're shotgunning. Nobody knows what's going to work or not work. Like, if someone guarantees that they can pick a winner, they're probably lying. So, so just, take a big sample set, and then you can pare that down. All right, so now the next one, it was just a straight add to cart deal. Then we added something called Very Purchase. Now, the issue with Very Purchase is it only works with ClickBank. For Mike and those guys, it works really well. But if there's any developers in the room, then I would highly recommend that you code something that works with like Infusion and Entreport's API that will pull customer info, because I'd buy it from you. And it's a pretty solid idea. So I think I kind of gave that one away, but that's going to be a 17% increase by just dropping the recent customers. And what it'll do is just pull the transaction data. And if you have a really paranoid market, this might work. Like I worked with a couple guys, and I couldn't win a split test to save my life. Everything I tried, I think I won 2 in a month-long period. Everything I tried, it was working in every market but them. It's actually, Chris and Chaz, are you guys around? Yeah, those guys back there beat me on pretty much every split test I tried. So they might not work in their market, but everybody else, you should try it. So then we did a frequently asked questions. I was going to show you that, but I think we need to go. So with the frequently asked questions, it's really a friendly way to do objections. Because, when somebody's reading through your letter, especially if you have big claims in something like weight loss, or you have a sophisticated market, then they're probably going to have some objections. And it's tough to handle the objections inside that copy, handle every single one. So I try to put them closest to the friction points. All right, so friction point is anywhere where you're going to be asking for sensitive information, or you're going to be asking them to take an action. So I would say add to cart. So in this case, we tested the add to cart. And the idea being, they'll get their question answered, and they'll be able to scroll right there and click add to cart. So market, control, or challenger. Control was just nothing. There was just the add to cart button. So it actually lost. We had an 8% decrease. One thing I also wanted to mention with this is I would encourage you to look for the full test. If you guys come see me afterward and give me, I guess you don't need to give me your email address, but I'll try to get you the Word document if anybody really wants to see the FAQs. Because when somebody says, we tested the headline, that doesn't really tell you anything about what they tested. There's a lot of things that could be in there. When I say, we tested frequently asked questions, maybe my copy sucks. Maybe I missed the objections that they actually had, or maybe it just wasn't relevant, period. So just because somebody says, I tested frequently asked questions and it didn't work, doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It means you should look at their test carefully and see where they probably blew it. Maybe our formatting was bad. Because it works for a lot of people. But if you want that copy, just come see me, I'll give it to you. Now, with captions, I read a guy, Ryan Healy, like 3 years ago, and I remember, is Ryan Healy here? Is that somebody who likes Ryan Healy? Okay, well, he's a cool guy. So he actually helped me get started in copywriting, but anyway. So I read it, and he had this great sales page, and he was like, use captions, always use captions. So I always use captions. But this time we decided to test it. The control was no captions, and then we added benefits. Now these are benefits straight from the sales copy. So these are benefits that we've tested into, like we know work. And there's some of the hotter benefits. So these are things that people want. And if there's higher readability, and now they read my benefits more, that should increase conversions. So we pulled that. And no captions won. I don't have the percentage with me, but it was very disappointing. It's almost, I guess, ironic, because when everybody seems to know that this is what the market does, when they say, captions always work, I never test captions, they just work, I put them on. I think it was around 10% difference, maybe more than that. And I would encourage you guys to check those things that you just take for granted. You say, I know for sure that the add to cart button needs to pop 30 minutes in. It's one that I argue for all the time. But you got to test it, because you're probably wrong more often than you're right, if you're like me when you run tests. So let's check out the next one. Okay, so if you guys have ever done the retail where you have a product that you offer at a higher price, what we decided to do was decrease the regular price, so then when we gave the discount, maybe it'd be more believable. And the idea is that people kind of have a threshold where they say, yeah, I would pay 20 bucks for a book, but I wouldn't pay 40 bucks for a book. So if they don't believe you, they're not going to buy from you. And we figured that if we could increase that believability, we'd increase conversions through the whole funnel, because now they trust us more. So we ran that test, control 39, regular price 19. One thing that if you're going to be a stickler for controlling everything, that font on the 19 is a little bit different. I couldn't find the font for the 39. So those are the little details that I don't think impact conversions, but you don't know. So just for full disclosure, that's a different font. Could anybody see that it was a different font? Did anybody pick it up? Okay, yeah, so there's maybe 5% of the room. And it was a tie. So either the font dropped it and it actually did make a difference, or it just didn't make any difference. They just cared about the discount. Okay, so then we had a Johnson box. Do you guys know what I mean when I say Johnson box, like where it goes on the page? So I'll explain it for a couple people. So with the Johnson box, it's like a sidebar. If you have your main copy on the left side, actually I can draw it over here. So if you got your main copy, so this is my sales page. Okay, so my Johnson box would be over here, and then my copy would be here. You can tell I own a whiteboard company with another guy. So with the Johnson box, we're just trying to add extra benefits. And if they're getting lost in the copy, we'll break it up, and they'll come back in. So our idea was we'll take some more of those attractive benefits, the things that people seem to be really grabbing onto, and we'll just tell them more about it. Does anyone like chocolate in the room? All right, so chocolate's good for you, and we figured we'd tell more people about it. Control vs. Challenger, we had a 10.5% increase with that little Johnson box. All right. So actually, before I go on, this is another situation where it's not like you add a Johnson box, it always gives you a 10.5% increase. We tried it with red wine, which was another really hot topic for this offer, and it dropped conversions. So, I think it dropped by like 15%. So you got to test into it rather than assuming, right? So next, who has a guarantee on their offer? Anybody have a okay. It's there's nothing wrong with not having a guarantee in my opinion. But before they'd found out that when they had a guarantee versus no guarantee, the wording really mattered. When it was the standard kind of guarantee, it suppressed conversions. And when I say suppressed conversions, I mean they sold less stuff. But the try it first, then decide angle did really well. So what we thought was maybe if we can break that out of the copy, because if you're scanning, which many people do on a long-form sales letter, if you're scanning, maybe you'll miss the fact that this is it's kind of like a free trial in the sense that you can get your money back anytime in. I think it's 60 days. So what we did was we pulled it out, we punched up the copy. You'll see that I'll let you compare again. You'll see that it's not a perfect test because we changed up a little bit of the formatting and the copy itself. Here we had this paragraph, and I think I switched it. Yeah. So then I was trying to make it more action-based, because whenever you're selling with words, the idea is to get them to not think about the product, but get them to think, hey, this is how I'm going to use it. This is the big benefit I'm going to derive. And we also wanted to add some credibility, so we put in the signed by Mike Geary and Catherine Ebling. The result was a tie, which was very disappointing. You go through, you design it, you punch up the copy, and it turns out that it's almost like with the offer. They don't really care how you present the offer to them as much, in this situation at least. They just want to know that it's risk-free for them. They want to know that they're trying it. They're not really committing. They're just taking a baby step forward in the conversion process. And if you guys right now have the Act Now and you have a 60-day money-back guarantee, I would encourage you to test that, because it's almost like dihydrogen monoxide. Have you guys heard about dihydrogen monoxide? It kills like 3,000 people a year. It causes millions of dollars of property damage. And the chemical formula is H2O, so it's water. The problem is when you hear water, you think you know what it's talking about. And when you hear it's a 60-day money-back guarantee, you think that there's probably some catch, it's going to be difficult to do. So if you can change the wording, unless you have a really unsophisticated market, If your market is pretty new to it, cool, just leave it. But if you have a chance to get the offer in front of them in the way that they haven't seen, I'd really encourage you to do that because it can really change things. So then we had a static headline. Let me see if I can open this one. And we had, all right, that's coming up later. Go with it. All right. Looks like I didn't put it on there. Don't you guys look at my folders now. Okay, so we had this scrolling headline here. Let me refresh that for anybody who didn't see it. So we put it in a scroll, and a guy named, I think his name is, it's not Mike Kim, Insane Home Fat Loss guy? What's his name? I ripped it from him, whatever his name is. He has the like My Red Drink where he stands on the YouTube video and like drinks it like that. So with an animated headline, the idea is that motion will pull them in more. And what we found was it was a 7% increase. It's not a huge increase, but if you have a $100,000 a month business and you add $7,000, if you don't want it, you can give it to me. And then we figured that we'd try a recap over the add to cart button. So once they've read a lot of copy, then maybe they need a recap. So this was Ed actually, and what he did was he just pulled through and pulled out a lot of the big benefits that we'd found work in the copy. You'll notice that we repeat the same benefits over and over and over again. Partly because we're not very original, but partly because it just sells a lot more stuff. So with this, we had no recap tested against recap, and it got a 22% increase. Now, how many people have a video sales letter? Anybody got one? All right, so a fair number. This was a $9 product, so I think it's what they call a tripwire, and we just call it like a low-ticket front end. And with this $9 VSL, we figured that we could really mimic the whole presentation, except for the Johnson boxes and the things that were outside the copy. And we tested taking a PowerPoint and then just putting it with VoiceOver, just pretty normal VSL. And the text page won by about 50%, which is disappointing because we produce video, so I kind of wanted to do the video. But this is another piece that I feel like people just know. Everyone knows that VSLs do better than text pages. Everyone knows that, except for when they don't. In other markets, we've tested it, and I mean, this was like within probably a month of running the same test. With the guys that I work with at Crisis Education, we tested it, and we saw just the reverse. We saw that the VSL gave us a much needed bump, especially for upsells. If you had, for our video upsells, like a text page just killed our upsell rates. So it pains me to say it, but test your VSL against text. It's going to be a better load time, number one, but maybe your market, especially if they're coming from a pre-sale page that was text, they're coming from a pre-sale text to a sales page text, could be more in line with what they're expecting. All right, so if you guys took count, if you didn't, that's cool. But if you took count, just total it up real quick, how many you got right? And we'll see if I got more right than you. Okay, so you can keep your number to yourself, but I averaged 38% right. That means, it's a little under 4 out of 10. And it's almost embarrassing to say, now that I don't need consulting clients, I can tell you guys. But the idea is to run more tests. And now, in my defense, I did include the ones that Ed had guessed would work and I thought wouldn't work. But that's still a lot of tests wrong. That means most of the time when I'm running a test, I'm wrong. But you get enough winners if you can produce them quickly that it makes up for itself. Who cares how many losers you have if you have one really big winner? Which is what I would argue for any copywriter, like I mentioned. So, move right on through it. Now, one thing I noticed with my clients was they really didn't have much of a organization for running tests. And what we've done is we just have a dashboard based on Google. We like Google Drive, we have Google Apps. And what we did was we split everything up, and I had a little formula that I use in order to see what I'm going to test next. First, we start with a big variable dump. And that just means you see everything, you think of any possible test that you can run and drop it in a big spreadsheet. Now, we've got a way of ranking it. What I do is I have a time cost, and the way I define it is like 1 equals 1 day, 2 to 3 days, 1 week, 2 weeks in greater than 2. By the way, would you guys be interested in having this? Because, okay, I'll duplicate it and put it online for you. So I can't give you their variables, sorry. But I do a time cost, then I do the potential. Now, this is all qualitative because we're taking educated guesses. You've seen how many I get wrong. So what I like to do is say, if it's a 1, it's a 1 to 5% increase, which really could be noise. So if it's 1 to 5%, it probably never makes it on the list. If it's a 2, it's going to be 5.3. You guys can read those. But what we're looking for is 5 potential and 1 time. That means there's a lot of reward for a little bit of time risk. Because the opportunity cost of running a split test, everyone acts like they split test a lot. And maybe some people do. But most people I meet, and including myself, we do this professionally. When I have my date started, I'll show you guys in a second, there's just usually a much bigger gap than you want to have in between split tests. So if you can make those few tests that you do get around to running work, it's worth it. Then I score it. So the way I score it is, I think that the potential trumps the time it takes me to make it. In other words, I want to weight things that could triple my sales significantly higher, even if they're going to take a week to produce, all right? And what I do is, to weight it, I just do 4 times the potential minus the time cost. Okay, and I've played with it, it's close enough. If you have something you really want to test and you feel like it's going to work perfectly, then go for it. But it just helps you to plan out that testing schedule at the beginning of the month and hopefully stick to it. Another little thing that you do with this is you can have 1 5 project going, and then while a 5 project is going, maybe you've got some 3s, something that you can test quickly and has a little bit of benefit, but you can run that while you're developing your big variables. You don't have to just develop one thing at a time. Then I think it makes a lot of sense to just have notes on where you ripped the idea. Just like I mentioned before, if you just say test FAQ, that could mean a lot of things to a lot of people. And you're probably going to blow it the first time and maybe blow it the second time, and the third time, if you can improve it, you'll do significantly better. So that's why we have the example URLs, and they've got comments and such. So there's our kind of variable dump. After that, we go to a schedule. And with the schedule, we have the variable we're going to test, how it's doing. It's essentially like a CRM or a project management software. Start date, or the target start date, the actual start date, and the end date and the results. Then it's pretty easy. And I like to keep a little track, did I pick it right? You can see some months there's a lot more yeses than nos. But with this, it helps you. If I was going to track something just from a business owner perspective, I want to know how quickly we're getting tests out the door, because we're going to have to lose a lot of tests to get that big bump. And you're going to find, if you're anything like me, that you're late a lot on testing. Things just take longer than I expect them to take. So with deadlines, what I try to do is just take the deadline and add another 20% to it. And then I'm closer to accurate most of the time. Then measure it. And if you have somebody who's in charge of testing, this is what you want to hold them accountable for. I don't care if they're doing optimization for me and they lose a lot of tests. I care if they're running a lot of tests. And if they're running tests that matter. If their tests suck, then you're not going to get much out of it, but So the results piece, we also have a little document that we'll put our hypothesis in. It's really easy to do a quick summary of a test, but it doesn't get done very often. So we just try to do a video of it. We have each one that has a formula sheet, and we archive the pages we actually tested. Because maybe you hear a great idea, and you think, okay, I've tested that before, but then you pull up your test sheet, you pull up your archive, and you realize you didn't really test the same thing they did. You're not going to know that if you don't have your pages. So this has been pretty helpful, but really hard to get in place. I would recommend, if you have a virtual assistant or if you can hire one, somebody to archive the pages and to just keep the wireframes, the instructions. It's a great resource for your developer if you can have one central place to do these things. It's also a great resource for you as the business owner or the boss to come in and say, okay, here's the days, we put the date and time things were updated. So the test started here, the test ended then, and here's where we got the results measured. So, all right, I think that covers the basic part. All right. So, I know you guys seem a little sleepy, but we're gonna do something a little more fun. We're gonna do some math. Yeah. I don't trust people that don't know their numbers, but a lot of people here they're good at looking at the numbers, but they're not so good at getting to the numbers. And a conversation I have often is, how long do I need to run the test? Or actually more often than that, I get a statement like, we tripled conversions. And I'm willing to listen. If you can tell me something like that, I'm willing to listen. But a lot of times it was 9 sales to 3. And there's the guys who are chuckling, that's even if we have a large percent difference, so the greater the difference, then the less data you need, allegedly, but you still are going to need a little more data. And this is almost an apology. I don't know if the gentleman from Nightingale comment. I always find that the quicker I respond to a question, the dumber the thing I say is. There's like a direct relationship between the amount of time I have to think and how smart my answer is. And he came up to me and he said, I saw your test and you just didn't take your variance right. And I got really defensive. I was like, well, I know we ran enough data through it and we got it, and I kind of blew him off. So it made me think, though, that I needed to have a little bit of a better explanation for where I'm coming from with a confidence interval. So you guys, if anybody has one of those cool credit card knives that you probably saw yesterday, I need you to put them down, remain calm. We're just doing a little bit of math. So, all right, there's my personal safety disclaimer. So there's a thing called standard deviation. Okay, standard deviation is essentially the spread of your values in a data set. Okay, we don't know the population standard deviation for any of this stuff. Okay, that's called a parameter. It's something we just don't have. But we can find standard error, and standard error is essentially what we use in place of standard deviation. Okay, I know that sounds like Greek, but you can figure it out pretty easy. It's just with your conversion rate. And the software does this for you. But I'm studying engineering, and what the professors always tell you is garbage in equals garbage out. If you don't know what your calculator is telling you, you're going to get garbage. And even these split test softwares have great calculators, but if you don't understand what it's saying, you're going to blow it. So it's a pretty simple calculation. It's just that conversion rate, and that's number of sales divided by number of visitors, times 1 minus conversion rate divided by the number of visitors, and it's the square root of that. Okay, now what you're looking for is a confidence interval. And a confidence interval tells you our values are all inside this area. Okay, and 95% is pretty decent. So you do 1.96 times the standard error, and then that'll give you your brackets. All right, so the reason for this is, and I was really excited about this slide. You guys don't seem as excited, but the reason is you're adding up all the area under the curve, right? So if you're to integrate it, you're going to add it all up, then within that 1.96, then you've got all 95% of the values that you're going to get. So that's where it comes from. You guys you're almost done. Don't worry, keep with me. All right. So here's the part you really care about. This is what's going on behind the scenes. This is an example of Visual Website Optimizer. And look at the little box. Maybe you guys are better at pictures. The little box, if they're overlapping, you got a problem. It's not significant. But if you got it so there's no overlap, you're pretty good. They also have a helpful calculation. That's exactly what I just showed you. It's a little bit different because they'll do different confidence intervals, but that say, okay, you got enough data. And a rule of thumb I go with is if it's not 100 conversions or more, I try not to look at the test for the first 100 conversions. Maybe check and make sure that nothing's broken, like there were 5, 10 conversions, but then just don't look at it, because if you look at it, you're gonna get depressed. If you're winning, we'll be up by 300%, and then it's gonna drop back down. You're gonna get depressed, or you're losing, you're gonna stop it, and you'll miss out. So just look at it after 100. You know how many sales you get a day. All right. Now we're done with the math, and we're moving on to some of the copy stuff. And I guess we better run pretty quick. So, how many people are working on their funnel where they don't have a working tripwire? They're still kind of trying to figure it out. Anybody need to generate a new offer? Now, how many people just want to make more offers that make a lot of money? All right, cool. So the idea is that most of your offers are going to do poorly. Like maybe 9 out of 10. I don't have an exact number here, but I think probably with letters I write, I just expect 5 of them to do bad and maybe 1 of them will do well. So that's 1 out of 6. But if you're right on the fence, if you're trying to get that tripwire, the first thing I would recommend is just to have a big list. So I'm going to pull up one of the lists that we use at a company I'm working with in the survival space. So I just go around Amazon. And the other thing that I would recommend is not making your list by just looking at what's selling the most right now. Because if you look at that, then you're going to be the second guy to it, and you might make some money, but you're not going to make nearly as much. So I just make a big list, okay? Then I'm going to think of what things I can bundle together, and that's how I'm going to create my first upsell. Okay, and the first upsell is going to be really simple. And it might sound a little backwards to start with the first upsell, but the reason I'm starting with it is I want to have an upsell that I can pull front ends from, okay? So this is an example of an offer that we're running. It's called the 4-Foot Farm Blueprint, and it's doing pretty well. So we have a standard lead. I break up my copy. We have a standard lead, and then we're going to list everything you're getting. This is the bundle. So I try to make the version 1 content fulfill what I promised, but embarrassingly bad. Because you want to get it out as quick as possible. You don't want to spend 6 months, especially if you're new. I don't know the gentleman's name who talked about the fastest way to make the first dollar. I heard him mention that, but I agree with that completely. Because you're just going to get bored if you don't. So generate a bundle. And once you get your bundle, pull one of those offers out and make it a front end. Okay, once you make a front end, there's a pretty simple template that we actually got from Ryan and Perry and those guys. Now, templates are only going to get you but so far, but they're a great starting point. I make sure that it's going to work enough. Like, the offer is going to be the biggest part. So make sure it's going to work enough before I spend all this time doing research and really diving into the copy. So what I do is I have maybe a 3-page lead, 3 or 4-page lead, and then I've got the same transition for every offer starting out. So with the bullets, there's 12 bullets total in here. There's a 3-page lead. So that means I can do Control Find, replace the name of the guide, write 12 bullets, 3-page lead, and I can send it to be produced for VSL. Now, it's not brilliant copy. It's not going to win any awards. And if it shows signs of life, it's going to need to be rewritten. But that time to market is critical. If you guys are just, maybe some of the copywriters would be really mad at me, but I don't believe that you should spend a whole lot of time in research until you know if the offer is going to work. Maybe you're going to see a great click-through rate. Maybe you're going to see a garbage click-through rate, and it doesn't matter how good the copy is. It just wouldn't be able to get any distribution. So that's the other reason for starting with that bundle, because you don't want to have something where you have this psychological barrier and you have to completely start over. Like, this offer didn't work. Let's build an entire new funnel. I would quit. And it's a lot easier if you just tweak it again, write 12 more bullets. You already wrote 3 for the bundle. Write 12 more bullets, and now you're launching another front end. So with this template, I think that Ryan and Perry's they probably released it in a template format, but it's pretty darn simple. This guarantee, maybe it's straight from them. It's it's like their guarantee exactly. And it works pretty darn well. It works good enough to get it out. All right. So when you're testing in copy, I think that a copywriter a lot of times worries about just how the conversion rate is on the page. And maybe you want your copywriter to worry about that. But the thing I like to do is take a look at the funnel. Let me push play here. And just accept the fact that it's not going to work at first, unless we get really lucky. It's rare that I have an offer come out of the gate and just do amazing. So there's 3 things that I'm going to look at right off the bat and see where the easiest thing to improve is. The first thing is the upsells. And I did a little calculator for it, just to see what is going to be. All right, go. If I know my CPA is $60 or $50, and my dollar per sale is not there. I got to see what I can do. So I don't know your upsell rates, but I know I want to put them in continuity as quick as I can, and I know that I can sell them other stuff to adjust for that if my continuity take rate goes down. So you guys can run this same exact formula. All it is your front end, and then see what your upsell rates are like. If you would have to triple the price of your upsell and the conversion stay constant, it's probably not going to work. That's not the place to start. But if you're $3 off and you just need a little bit extra revenue, try tripling the price. See, like if you could make it work with what you've got. And it's going to be something that is not textbook. It's not abundantly clear what you have to do, but just take a look at your data. All right. So with the lead, what I like to do is write 3 leads more often than not. This actually wasn't the winning lead on this offer. So I had a pretty short lead. It took maybe half a page, 3/4 of a page. And if you can write 156 words, you can write a new lead. A new lead can do 20 to 30% different. Brand new copy might do 80% different. But if you're that far away, it's really tough to sit down after you wrote one long letter and say, okay, we're going to try this again, and this time I know I can do something different. So I would encourage you just to try the lead if you don't have any money in the upsells. And then the last thing is, if it's not working, just switch the offer. Scrap it. Move quickly. Like, you're going to miss some good offers, but I'd rather miss like 10 good offers and make it to that one quicker than spend so much time. Like, there's so many guys that just know that they can make this offer work, and you're just going to be spitting in the wind most of the time. All right. Let's see here. All right. So we're going to do a short Q&A, but the last couple things. Load time was something that I was really surprised at how much it affected conversions. We tested with Chris and Chaz the same voiceover, the same video, but we had messed up on compressing the video. And it did 30% worse. I think the file size was maybe double, and it did 30% worse. So any ways you guys can get that load time down is going to be a big benefit. We produce a lot of whiteboard videos, but we found that it was suppressing conversion. So now we're saying, hey guys, use these to maybe as a lead capture, maybe as a short video on the front end, but for the direct response guys who do long-form VSLs, probably not. There are some other methods if you want to try them out. We've got them played on the TV. So if you don't know how to do this, pay somebody. It's really going to be worth the money if you have any volume. All right. Yeah, like I said, anybody who's a copywriter, if you want some more work, come talk to me, go to the back. And the last thing, I always like to close with just all glory to God. I'm really thankful for the great opportunities that He's given me. And if you want to know about the why, then you can come talk to me about that too. So now, thanks. So now I'm going to just pull up my folder, and if you want to, you can ask me some questions about specific promos. If you have general questions, then we can talk about that as well. So we've got 5 minutes. Yeah. That's a great question. So I just asked a gentleman by the name of Bryce Morrison. He's a good app developer. So Wistia is one that he suggested. I haven't tested it though. They've got cool analytics, and I've used it for that. The issue is going to be that it's more expensive. So check your ROI on it, but I'd try Wistia.
Real quick, if you have a question, go to the microphone so we can hear it.
Oh yeah.
Because I hear a lot of you guys saying, "What was the question?" Right? What was the question?
It was for video players. Do I have any that I recommend or any that I've tested? Answer was no, I haven't tested Wistia, but I plan to. So
we use that. First of all, let's give this guy a big round of applause. Y'all get some good ideas? Get some good tricks? Hey, so yes, if you got some questions, hang out. We are going to be back. We are on schedule. Shocker of shockers. We are going to be starting the breakout sessions. We're on schedule, but I don't have said schedule. When does it say those are starting? 1:30. Fantastic. That all starts. We got mobile in here. We've got nonprofit and VC funding are downstairs in those sessions. So if you still have some questions, feel free to ask him, and if not, I'll see you guys at 1:30. So go ahead.
All right, go ahead, dude. Hey, can we get that mic on?
Can you leave the mic on, please?
Can't hear you. Hey, Mike, back with the mics. I guess Don's got us under control. If you want to come up here.
Someone must turn on.
No.
You want to come up?
Yep.
I'll tell you what, if you got questions, you mind if they just meet you in the back for questions?
I don't mind at all.
Or actually, you want to go to the
Check.
booth?
Oh, yeah.
Lance, I got the question now. What are you finding with length of VSL versus price of offer? So in terms of having a tripwire for $7, is there a relationship you're seeing with the length of a VSL?
So, actually, let's head back to the booth.
Okay.
We'll just talk about it there.
Yep.
That's what we're gonna do.
So yeah, so if you got some questions for Lance, meet him over by his booth. Conversion Geeks are out there to the left. He'll be over there answering some questions. Again, let's give him a big round of applause.